My fiancé's ex sent me videos from their trip last month. We got married yesterday. I opened my email 7 days before my wedding, and there it was, a message from a name I'd never seen before, with an attachment that would either destroy everything I'd built with the man I loved or prove exactly why I was marrying him. I clicked play on that video, and my entire world shifted. But here's the thing, I still walked down that aisle yesterday. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why. Let me take you back to where this all started, because the ending only makes sense when you know the beginning. My name is Sarah, and 2 years ago I met Daniel at the most ridiculously cliché place possible, a coffee shop. I know, but hear me out. I was having the worst day of my life. I'd just been passed over for a promotion I deserved, my car had a flat tire in the parking lot, and I'd walked into this cafe looking like a drowned rat because naturally it was pouring rain. I ordered my coffee with the last $5 in my wallet, and when I reached for it, I knocked it over. All over myself, all over the counter, all over my dignity. I just stood there, frozen, covered in hot coffee, trying not to cry in public. And then this guy, Daniel, stepped up beside me. He didn't laugh, he didn't make a joke, he just calmly handed me a stack of napkins, turned to the barista and said, "2 coffees, please, both on me, and maybe make them iced this time, seems safer." That made me laugh through my tears, and that was it. That was the moment. We talked for 3 hours that day. Then we talked every day after that. Daniel was different from anyone I'd ever met. He was kind, genuinely kind, not the performative kind that disappears when nobody's watching. He was ambitious, but never at the expense of others. He remembered little things like how I took my coffee, what my favorite childhood movie was, the name of my childhood dog. He made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced before. 6 months into our relationship, he told me about his ex, Melissa. They'd dated for 3 years, and according to Daniel, it had ended badly. She'd cheated on him with his former best friend, and when Daniel confronted her, she'd tried to flip the entire narrative, telling everyone he was controlling and possessive. It took him months to rebuild his reputation and his trust in people. He told me all of this one night, vulnerable and honest, and I held his hand and promised him that I was nothing like her, that I would never hurt him that way. "I know," he'd said, looking into my eyes. "That's why I'm telling you, because I trust you." Fast forward 1.5 years, and Daniel proposed. It was perfect, everything I dreamed of. We were hiking up to this lookout point we'd discovered on one of our first trips together, and when we reached the top, he got down on one knee with the sunset painting the sky behind him in shades of pink and gold. I said yes before he even finished asking. I would have said yes if he'd proposed in a parking lot at midnight. I loved this man with everything in me. We set the date, sent out invitations, booked the venue. Everything was falling into place. My dress was hanging in my closet wrapped in protective plastic like it was made of dreams and hopes. Our families were flying in from different states. We'd written our vows, each of us keeping them secret from the other. We were 1 week away from forever. And then I got the email. It came on a Tuesday morning. I was at work, going through my inbox, deleting spam and responding to clients when I saw it. The sender's name was just initials, MR, and the subject line read, "Something you should know before you marry him." My first instinct was to delete it. It screamed scam or drama or both. But something made me pause. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was intuition, but I opened it. The message was short. "Hi, Sarah. I don't know you, but I know Daniel. I think you deserve to see this before you make the biggest mistake of your life. He's not who you think he is. The attached video is from last month. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you." My hands were shaking as I clicked on the video file. It took forever to load, each second feeling like an hour. And then it started playing. The video was clearly taken on a phone, a little shaky but clear enough. It showed Daniel, my Daniel, sitting at a restaurant table. Across from him was a woman. Even before the camera zoomed in slightly, I knew who she was. Melissa, his ex, the one who destroyed his trust and broken his heart. They were talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying because there was no audio, but they were definitely having a conversation. Melissa was smiling, leaning in close. Daniel was... I couldn't read his expression. Was he smiling back? Was he uncomfortable? the angle was hard to tell. Then came the second video, same setting, maybe a few minutes later. They were walking out of the restaurant together. Melissa linked her arm through his, and they walked like that arm in arm down the street until they turned a corner and disappeared from view. The third video was a photo. Daniel and Melissa standing in front of what looked like a hotel. The timestamp on the bottom read exactly 4 weeks ago. Daniel had told me he was on a business trip that week, to Chicago, for work. He'd called me every night, told me about his boring meetings, complained about his hotel room, and all the while, he was with her. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My chest was tight, my vision was blurring. This couldn't be real. There had to be an explanation. But what explanation could there possibly be? I spent the entire rest of that workday in a fog. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think. I kept watching those videos over and over, zooming in on Daniel's face, trying to read his body language, trying to find some evidence that this wasn't what it looked like. But the evidence was right there, undeniable. My fiancé had been with his ex, the ex he claimed to hate, the ex who ruined his life, just 1 month before our wedding.
I didn't confront him immediately. I needed time to process, to think clearly. I went home that evening and acted normal. When Daniel came through the door with takeout from my favorite Thai place, I smiled and kissed him like everything was fine. We ate dinner, watched a show, went to bed. All the while, those videos played on a loop in my mind. The next morning, I made a decision. I responded to the email. "Who are you?" I typed. "Why are you sending me this?" The response came within an hour. "I'm someone who cares about the truth. I'm someone who's been where you are. Daniel isn't who he pretends to be, Sarah. He's still seeing Melissa. He never stopped. I have more proof if you need it, but I thought you deserved to know before you legally tied yourself to a liar." More proof? My stomach turned. But I wrote back, "Show me." What came next was a folder of screenshots, text messages between Daniel and Melissa stretching back months, flirty messages, "miss you" and "can't wait to see you again" and heart emojis, plans to meet up, references to keeping things quiet. And then, the kicker, a message from just 2 weeks ago, from Daniel to Melissa. "Sarah's been stressed about wedding planning. Sometimes I just need a break from all of it. You always know how to make me feel better." I actually felt physically sick reading that. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. This man, the man I was supposed to marry in 5 days, had been lying to me, cheating on me, with the woman he'd told me was his worst mistake. The betrayal was so deep it felt like a physical wound. But here's where the story takes a turn, because I'm not the kind of person who falls apart without getting answers first. I needed to confront Daniel, but I needed to do it smart. So I called in sick to work, and I started digging. First, I checked Daniel's phone. I know, invasion of privacy, but at this point, I figured I was entitled. I waited until he was in the shower, and I went through his messages. Nothing. Not a single text to or from Melissa. I checked his call logs. Nothing. His emails. Nothing. It was like she didn't exist in his phone at all. That made me pause. If he was really sneaking around with her, wouldn't there be some evidence on his phone? Unless he was using a burner phone or a separate app. But that seemed extreme even for a cheater. Next, I looked at our credit card statements. We had a shared account for household expenses, and I had access to his personal card statements too. We'd combined finances when we got engaged. I went through every charge from the past 3 months. The week he was supposedly in Chicago, every single charge matched his story. Hotel in Chicago, restaurants in Chicago, Uber rides in Chicago. There was nothing that placed him anywhere near where those videos were taken, which, according to the metadata, was in our city. That's when things stopped adding up. If Daniel had been here, with Melissa, how were his credit cards being used in Chicago? I pulled up his work calendar. His trip was documented.
I even called his assistant, pretending I needed to send him something from that week. She confirmed he'd been in Chicago. She'd helped him book the flights and hotel. My mind was racing. Something was wrong with this picture, but I couldn't figure out what. So I did something crazy. I called Melissa. I found her number through some social media detective work, and I called her. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. She answered on the third ring. "Hello? Melissa? This is Sarah, Daniel's fiancé." There was a long pause. "Oh, hi. What can I do for you?" "I'm going to be direct. Are you sleeping with my fiancé?" Another pause, longer this time. "What? No. Sarah, I haven't seen Daniel in almost 2 years, not since we broke up. Why would you even ask me that?" "Because someone sent me videos of you two together, last month, at a restaurant, walking arm in arm, standing in front of a hotel." "That's impossible. I haven't—" "Wait, videos?" Her voice changed, got sharper. "Describe them to me." I described them, every detail, the restaurant, their clothes, the way they were positioned. As I talked, I heard Melissa's breathing change.
"Oh my God," she whispered. "Sarah, those videos aren't from last month. I know exactly what you're talking about. Those are from 2 years ago, right before Daniel and I broke up. Someone's catfishing you, or trying to sabotage your wedding." My blood went cold. "How do you know?" "Because I remember that day. It was one of our last attempts to fix things before everything fell apart. We went to our favorite restaurant, tried to talk things out. It didn't work. That was it. But that was 2 years ago, Sarah, not last month. And I can prove it." She sent me photos. Her with a completely different hairstyle, longer and darker than in the videos. A social media post from that exact day 2 years ago, showing her in those same clothes at that same restaurant. The geotag, the timestamp, everything matched. The videos I'd been sent were old. Someone had taken old footage and tried to pass it off as recent. But who? And why? I thanked Melissa and hung up, my mind spinning. Then I remembered something. The email signature. MR. I'd assumed it was Melissa's initials, but Melissa's last name was Torres. MT, not MR. I went back to the email and looked more carefully. The sender's address was a generic Gmail account, created just days before the first message. I looked at the screenshots of the text messages between Daniel and Melissa. Really looked at them. The font was slightly off. The timestamps were inconsistent. They weren't real. They were fabricated. Someone had created fake text messages, dug up old videos of Daniel and Melissa, and was trying to destroy my relationship. But who would do that? I made a list in my head. Who would want to stop this wedding? Who had the motivation and the means? And then it hit me. I pulled up Facebook and searched for a name I hadn't thought about in months. Marcus Reynolds. MR. Marcus was someone I'd briefly dated about 3 years ago, before I met Daniel. We'd gone on maybe 5 dates before I realized we had zero chemistry. I'd ended things politely, and he'd seemed fine with it, or so I thought. But over the years, he'd occasionally send me messages. Friendly at first, then increasingly weird. Comments on my photos with Daniel like, "You sure about this guy?" Or, "You could do better." I'd ignored them, blocked him eventually. But Marcus worked in tech, graphic design, and digital media. He absolutely had the skills to fake text messages and manipulate video metadata. I needed proof, though, so I did some more digging. I created a fake profile and found Marcus's accounts, and there, buried in his photos from 2 years ago, were pictures from that same restaurant. He'd been there, that same day. In some of the background shots, you could even see Daniel and Melissa at their table. Marcus had been there, had filmed them, and had saved that footage for years, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. The realization made me feel sick all over again, but this time from anger, not heartbreak.
This person had tried to destroy my life, ruin my relationship with a good man, all because of some twisted obsession or revenge fantasy. I took everything I'd found, all the evidence, and I finally confronted Daniel, not with accusations, but with truth. I showed him the emails, the videos, the fake screenshots. I told him about my conversation with Melissa, my investigation, everything. Daniel's face went through about a dozen emotions: confusion, hurt, anger, and finally, understanding. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I never trusted that guy. The way he looked at you, even before you two dated, I always felt like he was waiting for me to mess up so he could swoop in." We reported everything to the police: harassment, attempted fraud, stalking. They took it seriously, especially given the fake evidence. Marcus was contacted by officers, and while I don't know all the details of what happened to him legally, I do know he was ordered to stay away from both of us.
But here's the thing that really mattered. Through all of this, Daniel never once made me feel guilty for doubting him. He understood. He held me while I cried, angry at myself for not trusting him immediately, angry at Marcus for trying to manipulate me. "Sarah," Daniel said, "I would have doubted me too if I'd seen those videos. You did exactly what you should have done. You looked for the truth, and you found it. That's not a lack of trust. That's intelligence." So yes, I opened my email 7 days before my wedding and saw videos that could have destroyed everything. But instead of letting someone else's poison seep into our relationship, I fought for the truth. I fought for us. And yesterday, I married the love of my life. As I walked down that aisle, I wasn't walking toward a man I blindly trusted. I was walking toward a man I'd chosen to trust, even after being tested. There's a difference. Blind trust is fragile. Chosen trust, earned trust, tested trust, that's unbreakable. Marcus tried to break us, but all he did was prove that what Daniel and I have is real. Real enough to survive doubt, real enough to survive manipulation, real enough to last a lifetime. In my vows, I added something I hadn't planned. I looked at Daniel and said, "I promise to always seek the truth, even when it's scary. I promise to fight for us, even when it's hard. And I promise that no matter what anyone tries to tell me, I will always come to you first, because you have earned my trust 1,000 times over." Daniel had tears in his eyes. So did I. So did half the guests, though they had no idea what we were really talking about. The moral of this story isn't just about trusting your partner, it's about being smart enough to verify, brave enough to confront, and wise enough to know the difference between real evidence and manufactured drama. It's about not letting other people write your story. Marcus thought he could play director with my life, cutting and pasting reality to fit his narrative, but he forgot one crucial thing. I'm not a character in someone else's story. I'm the author of my own. So, to anyone listening who's ever received a suspicious message, who's ever been shown evidence that seems designed to hurt you, here's my advice. Don't ignore your gut, but don't act on emotion alone. Investigate. Ask questions. Talk to your partner. Give them a chance to explain. And if the explanation doesn't add up, keep digging until you find the truth, whatever it may be. In my case, the truth was that I was marrying exactly the right person, the person who'd never once given me a real reason to doubt him, the person who understood when I needed to verify, because he knew that real love can withstand scrutiny. Yesterday, as we danced at our reception, Daniel whispered in my ear, "Thank you for choosing me, even after everything." I whispered back, "Thank you for being worth choosing." And that right there is what real love looks like. Not the fairy tale kind that never gets tested, the kind that gets thrown in the fire and comes out stronger, the kind that looks doubt in the face and says, "Try me." We're on our honeymoon now, and I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I married the right man, not because someone told me he was right, but because when it mattered most, when I had every reason to run, I chose to stay and seek the truth instead. And the truth set me free to love him completely, without reservation, without fear, because I know, really know, that what we have is real. No manipulated video, no fake screenshot, no bitter ex-boyfriend can ever take that away from us. That's my story. The story of how my fiancé's ex, or at least someone pretending to have dirt on him, sent me videos 1 week before my wedding and how I still walked down that aisle anyway. Not despite the videos, but because I was smart enough to look beyond them. Sometimes the biggest test of love isn't whether you trust blindly, it's whether you love enough to seek the truth and trust what you find. I did, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Thanks for listening to my story. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know what you would have done in my situation. Would you have confronted your partner immediately? Would you have investigated first? I'm genuinely curious because this experience taught me that love isn't just about feelings, it's about choices, and I chose right. Until next time, remember, don't let anyone else write your love story. You hold the pen. Make sure your story is worth reading.